Well, good morning. So we're going to start a little series today, a little three-part series called Love Hacks. Thank you for that. Yeah. And we're going to talk about relationships for a few weeks. Won't that be fun? And some of you are thinking, why are we going to talk about relationships? I don't do that. Because I said so. That's why. No. Actually, no, I have done some very impressive data research kind of stuff, and what I have found is that, 98% of people that can be found in church buildings either wish that they were in a relationship or they wish that the relationship that they are in was better, which by inference means that if you are one of those people, about 100% of your free time is spent thinking about how you want those things. And that's a pretty huge deal, right? I mean, that's a pretty, that's my made-up stuff that, this is Pastor James. I don't know what percentage of your time you spend doing what, but boy, I think it's a lot. If you're a person that's like not in a relationship, but you've wanted to be in a relationship, man, you spend quite a lot of time thinking about that. I know you do. And if you are in a relationship and you're not quite content with where it is and you want it to get better, you spend a lot of time thinking about that too. Don't you? Come on. I want to see some heads in the dark. Yeah, it's a pretty huge deal. And so these next few weeks, what I'm going to do is cover 3 rules of business that do not work in your love life. What I have found as I have been scrolling through the world of the interwebs is that more and more I see that people are taking things that they learn, principles of doing smart business, and they're trying to translate them over and make them work in their love lives. And maybe that feels natural. Or maybe you have no idea what is he talking about? Well, I'm just going to jump right into the first one. This is one of the first rules of business. You probably learned it from your grandma when you were a little kid, and people are using this all over in their love lives. It's called hedging your bets. Grandma taught it to you like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, dearie. Yep. The bank calls it risk management. Investors call it diversification. And it's real simple. You have interests in the world, things that you want to go well, prosper, be healthy, all that good stuff. And so, you invest yourself. You give what you have toward those things, your time, your energy, whatever, money, you beg, borrowed, or stealed, and you apply those things into what you want to do well. But there are people, wise people, who say, you should be careful not to put absolutely everything you have into one single venture. Because what's going to happen if that thing doesn't pan out the way that you think? If you sink absolutely everything you are as a human being into starting up a brand new widget company, and then Apple comes out next week and they say, you know what, we've decided we're going to make widgets. Well, you're up the creek. It's just logical. If you're selling, you don't just have one way that you do your sales. If you're manufacturing, you don't just have one product that you sell. If you're a farmer, you don't just have one crop in all of your fields. It just isn't wise, right? It makes sense. It's logical. But there is a problem when you bring that thinking over into relational life. If you have a special someone in your life and you're hedging your bets, there are some issues with that. And I'm not calling anyone out in judgment. I absolutely am not doing that. I'm actually just pointing out some things that you have probably noticed yourself that you don't really like, okay? And so I'll just point out that people have lots of ways in relationships that they hedge their bets. Many people will go into relationships and, one thing that they do is they say, there are areas that I want you to be part of my life in, but there are certain levels of decision making that are off limits to you. Right? You can help me pick the color of the living room, but I don't want your name on the lease. Right? You can help me pay the bills, but I don't want your name on my retirement account. because that's a level of risk that I'm not quite ready to accept. Okay? There are so many places. Some people will, well, they wouldn't admit to it, and they might not even know it, but some of us might hedge our bets by carefully maintaining certain relationships, certain close connections that we have with other people that, you would never admit, well, I'm kind of keeping my options open. But the truth is, if your current relationship was to suddenly, be wiped out and be a catastrophe, there wouldn't be too many people who were surprised that you ended up with this other person. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, it's getting uncomfortable in here. I'm sorry, but it's real, and maybe you're not even consciously doing that, but sometimes people do that. They keep their options open. If this thing doesn't pan out, I want it to pan out, but if it didn't, I think I know which side of the road I'd be looking on for the next one. They've got somebody kind of squared away, kind of lined up. They wouldn't admit to it, but maybe that's true. I notice another place that people do it is especially in finances. I know some of you are just like, oh, what were you talking about? I mean, I see it. People build a life together, but they're very careful about how much of their financial life they're willing to let someone else have their hands in, even though they have a very close relationship. No, I don't want your name on my checking account. No, I'll have my money and you have your money. Of course, there are times when I think I've heard people, and married people, not just anybody, but married people, that say, I have my money and they have their money. And I think to myself, so when you get to be really old and you go to the old folks' home, if they don't have enough money to go with you, are you just going to leave them there? What, I think these things, wait a minute. So when push comes to shove, if they run out and you still have some, are you just going to keep what you have for yourself? How does that work exactly? I don't know, but it's something you want to think about if that's where you are. I don't know. No judgment. I'm just saying something that you would think about. And honestly, what it is building walls. We may want a person in our lives. We may want to have a strong relationship, but there's a certain issue we have with trusting that person at a higher level. And so what we do sometimes, and this could be you're not married, you're married, you've been married, or you're working on being married. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're not anywhere near being married, but you're just thinking about it. This can apply to you too. What we do is we start to build walls or areas in our life where we say, I want you in my life, but this is a dead end over here. You can't go any further because the truth is, I really want you in my life, but I don't really trust you. I want you in my life, but I don't really trust you quite at the level of 100%. It's back here somewhere. It's like 75%. I really love being around, but I don't know that I would want you, making decisions for me in the hospital. I want you to be, I want you part of my family, but I'm not sure I totally trust what you do with the kids if I weren't around. We have these walls that we start to build in places that we don't trust. And it can look, you can take the nicest, most Christianized looking couple in the world, and if you examine their lives, truth be told, they probably still have some place or another in their life where they have a little wall up where they won't let their partner past. Maybe they don't share quite everything that they would share because they're not quite sure if they trust that person with everything that's on their heart. They have these little areas that we build little walls, little brick walls that people can't get past. Now, I was trying to explain to someone who didn't speak English as their first language about this concept. It was a very casual conversation. I believe, we were able to communicate fairly well, but it was a little bit of a struggle for him. And so I was explaining this, okay, so people, you have people, you want them around, you want them close to you, but not good to trust them all the way. Not good to trust a lot. And we were struggling a little bit, and then I said something that helped him. The lights came up, and he goes, oh, prison. Prison. You have someone, you want them with you all the time. You can't trust them. You don't want them to go anywhere else. You can't trust them with anything. That's called prison. Yeah. He's not totally wrong. If that's the dynamic of the relationship, there is an element there that a person might want to escape. And they can't. In the Catholic faith, I think they call this something like purgatory. And if you're not familiar with purgatory is this place you go after you die where you don't quite go to heaven, but you're not alive anymore. So it's not as bad as it could be, but you just can't go to where you want to be. You can't escape until someone comes and lets you loose. St. Peter or something. I didn't study it really that well, but that's, that was the idea I got. And so people many times, without realizing it, are building a dynamic for their relationship that really isn't anything like what they want or wanted when they started. Because, who in their relationship starts out thinking, they treat me like I'm kind of foolish and untrustworthy. It's just cute. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Nobody says, they want me to carry all the load and responsibility, but I'm not allowed to make a decision about really anything. That's so romantic. No, nobody thinks that. Because the truth is, the longer you go untrusted in a relationship, the more you're going to start looking for a way to make a break for it. It's just natural. If you're in a situation where you go untrusted for a long period of time, or it's just obvious that you've hit a hurdle and you're not allowed to go any farther, you start to think, maybe this isn't so good. And I'm not talking about dating, because honestly, dating, it makes sense. You haven't made a decision about a person yet, but you need to at some point make a decision. And so when we're dating, you put up these little picket fences that just make a lot of sense. Well, since this isn't a committed relationship yet, I'm gonna not allow certain things to take place beyond this point. Okay, that makes sense. But I'm talking about people who have made a decision. You picked up a fish from the sea and you've decided, this is my fish. This is the fish. I'm happy with the fish. This is the fish I'm taking. I am no longer interviewing for other applicants. I have closed my posting on Indeed. Okay, you have made your decision about who it is that you want your life with. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. And the truth is, I believe that no matter what you might have been saying out loud or telling other people when you started a relationship, the truth is, you were looking for someone who would trust you. And that someone would be someone that you would want to sacrifice for. You would want to. You would think they were worthy of that investment. And so I don't think it's any coincidence that when the Apostle Paul writes in the New Testament about instructions or commandments for new believers and how they're supposed to have a close, intimate relationship, that he actually takes the totally opposite view of the way that the rest of the world thinks. And I'm going to have you in Ephesians 5:25, just listen to this. And guys, I'm sorry in advance, but I'm going to put you on the chopping block first. This is Paul talking to men in close, committed, official relationships. He says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. That is a long mouthful. But what he is saying is, men. Listen to my words as I speak. Men. God's guide for a committed relationship is the way that Jesus loved us. if you have a young lady or maybe an older lady that you're committed to, the relationship guide is to love that person the same way that Jesus loved you. And he builds this beautiful, brilliant picture of Christ sacrificing his life on the cross for the sake of these people, for their ultimate good. And he says things like, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to be able to present her to himself as a radiant church. He's talking about building someone up with truth to bring out the best in their life, to help them become the healthiest person that they can possibly become in God's eyes, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. He's saying, manly men, okay, manly men. It is your calling to help this person be untempted. You're going to do everything that you can with your life to do the opposite, to help build them up toward being the model that God had in mind. Don't do anything that tempts them away from that. Build them toward it. Speak truth. Confront if you need to. Share what you're thinking. Talk things through. Have an argument if you need to. But, get to the bottom of things together and help this person become everything that they were meant to in Christ. All in, whatever it takes. Well, you think, well, maybe that's not all in. Maybe there's more. I don't know. If you are willing to die for someone, you really don't have anything else to give, do you? Is there something greater or costlier than your life? It's the most expensive thing you own. Men, this is your calling. Sacrifice everything you are for the benefit of this human being, to the point that it kills you, maybe. The dudes of the room are going, oh. If you got someone with you right now, and that's your special someone, you're like, when is this over? When is this over? In about 20 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But the truth is, I shouldn't joke, because it's as serious as it gets. And I know, men, what your problem is. Your problem is you're thinking about your person, and you're thinking, well, I really love this person. I love this person. Really, I wouldn't have picked them, if they weren't pretty good. I have some standards. I do. People think I don't, but I do. And I picked this person. But, they do have some stuff that's wrong with them. They do. There's certain, bathroom habits that they have. They don't eat right. They have this annoying thing. I've talked, it's just... Sometimes they don't really act like I'm a very big deal, and that means, it hurts me. You have all of these things gathered up, and you're like, I would sacrifice, but I'm not sure I would sacrifice at that level. I might sacrifice, like some of my 401k, but I'm not sure, to the point of death, would I die for them? Is it that serious? God says it is. God says the way that Christ lived and died is the model for how you relate to this person. And I also know what you're thinking, because I'm a man. You're thinking, well, I've never, I have certain things I've done that have been good, but if I just started doing like extra, if I just started doing like more, and like going like over the top, I just don't think she'd take me seriously. You ever have that thought, guys? Like, I thought of something I could do, but I haven't done it before. If I did that, she'd probably just like laugh at me. Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying that? You're not romantic. Why are you trying to, what are you doing? That's not you. I'm afraid she's just going to laugh in my face. And any man I know does not like to be humbled in the same way twice. So you're afraid she's not going to take you seriously. Okay, this is what I think you should do. On the car ride home, I think that you should talk to her about this. Don't trust me. Talk to her about this and just see. And I think what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to put your hand on the wheel. If she's driving, put your hand on the wheel. Because you're right, she's not going to take you seriously. She's going to pass out. She's going to pass out. If you start talking about becoming this incredibly sacrificial human being that is always looking out for her good, and even if she's wrong, you'll tell her you think she's wrong, you'll call her on it, or you'll encourage her, or you'll notice when she's needing something from you. If you think, I'm going to dedicate my life to that, what would you think about that? I think she's just going to fall over. I think she's going to swoon. Have you seen swooning? People don't do it very much. It looks like it's, that's what people are going to do. This is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But I think most women in committed relationships dream of such a person in their lives. That's what I think. And you can read these things in the Word and look in Ephesians for yourself later on today, and you're going to have to test these things to your own understanding. Do I believe that? I don't know. Do I believe that? God, what would you have me do? Now, women, you are not off the hook either. Hold on, I got to prepare myself to do what I'm about to do. Lord, protect me. No, this is a hard part. I gave the husbands a hard part first because I think they need it, but also because I'm a little bit afraid, okay? Here's the part. I have never enjoyed quoting this to any mixed audience ever because I'm always just like, what are they going to think about this? Okay, but this is Paul's words to the wives, the women in these committed relationships. He says this, he says, wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord. Wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord. Submit? Yikes. You can't say that today. You can't say that because people will freak out. People will freak out. Submission is not a glamorous word. There's nothing really exciting to most people about the thought of submitting to someone. What is submitting? What is submission? Submission is when you take a position on something and you share it with someone, but then you trust that person with the responsibility of being responsible for the final call. So you say, hey, I really passionately believe this, and I think this is the way to go, and I saw that this happened, and I think we should take this into account. But, those of you in military leadership of any kind, you've seen this dynamic. Submission takes place. A person comes to the command or whatever, and they say, hey, this is how this went, and this is what I think should be done, and this is what I noticed, and we talk and we discuss, and they ask questions, and we have their give and take, and then at some point somebody says, okay, I think this is what we need to do then. And you trust that person to make the call, and you understand that they are now bearing the responsibility. They bear that weight. If this goes badly, whose fault is it? This person who made the call. If this goes really awesome, who's responsible for this? All the people that helped me make this decision. That's the right answer, okay? But my family back home, and give the Oscar speech. When it goes right, give the Oscar speech. I have to thank everybody out there. It's really nothing to do with me. It's all these fabulous people. But when it goes wrong, it's your fault. Because you made the call. And there's nothing wrong about that. Nothing at all. And so Paul says, wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord. The same way that you would go to Christ and say, this is concerning to me, or I'm anxious, or I don't know how to fix this, or whatever it is that you've got in front of you. You go to the Lord the same, go to your husband and treat him in this parallel, okay? Talk about the things, discuss the things, go back and forth, ask questions, do all these stuff, but then find a way to trust the person and say, you can make the call. I don't want to wear that, you make the call. At the end. And it goes on. He says, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. That's like, it doesn't sound like the same kind of sacrifice that the men got. You remember the beginning where, men lay down your very lives for the sake of this person? But it is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of trust. It's actually allowing another person to be directly responsible for your future. And the terror of that is palpable. It's terrifying. Because you've seen some crummy dudes, haven't you? Yes, you have. I mean, you probably have some horror stories that you could tell. I mean, there are so many examples. Listen to this. Joseph Stalin was a married man. Did you know that? Yeah, it is a real dude, who had kids and all that. Wow, these people really exist. There are some really terrible people out there. And a lot of them are men. So it really makes you think. I don't know if I trust these guys or not. They make dumb decisions, and they're selfish, and they just don't even think sometimes, and they don't talk things over when they should, and they're bad at communication, and I don't know if I want to put the future of my life, I don't know. And I understand. But there are some things I want you to think about. Because I don't want you just dwelling on everything that you've experienced in the past. What I want you to do is try and just park that for a little bit and imagine if things were a little bit more like what God is talking about on both sides. And if you are in a position, okay, number one, where if you're dating Joe Stalin right now, run, okay? Just run. Get out of there, okay? Just get out of there. Get out of there, okay? I'm not one of those preachers who's like, you need to submit to whatever man comes along. No. There are some very bad situations that you could put yourself in if you're picking the wrong guy. I mean, if you step back and look at someone and you go, listen, and I'm not committed to this person in any way, and there's a thing, but there's no decision on this person yet, okay? And you're saying, I really actually have legitimate reasons why I would never trust this person with A, B, C, or D in important areas of my life. Okay, time to take the hook out of the water and go fish in another pond, okay? You could just escape all of that. You don't have to do that. But for those of you who are looking at the people that you have picked, because you've picked someone, and you're looking at them and you're going, I'm afraid that if I started taking this line toward this person, I think they're just going to turn into a tyrant. I think they're just going to get mean. I think they're going to take advantage of me every opportunity they get, and they're going to order me around, and they're going to, crush me and step on me and cast insults at me like a slave and expect me to sleep on the floor. Okay, honestly, I think you're better at picking than that. And I think if you really believed that about the person that you have picked, you wouldn't have picked them. I think if you've picked somebody and you're still with that somebody and you're here listening to me today, I don't think you believe that that's really what they would become. I think you picked that person because you believe they had it in them to become the kind of man that you have dreamt of. So maybe trust your choice a little bit more. Trust your choice just a little bit more. Your judgment might be better than you think, but they might need a little bit of help. Now, here's the truth, more truth. If you just stop and just put away all the awful experiences you've heard about, that you've had, that you experienced growing up. Your parents, your grandparents had a bad relationship. They're supposed to be Christians, and they just treated each other like garbage. Just put all that aside for a second. And just see if you don't believe that this is true. You'd sacrifice everything for someone who trusts you, and you'd trust someone who'd sacrifice everything for you. Wouldn't you? I mean, if you had a chance at a relationship like that, if you had somebody that really implicitly trusted you, not that you don't, weigh in together and make decisions together as a team, but that you really trusted them, even if you weren't there, you could trust that person and they trust you. If you have someone that you can really, really trust, that is a relationship you'd sacrifice pretty much anything to protect. And when you know a person who would sacrifice pretty much anything for your good, that's a person you would like to trust. You would. I believe that you would. And so, I'm asking you, if you are in some kind of committed relationship, would you consider stepping out on a limb in faith and saying, I'm going to start taking some of the bricks in one of those walls down. I'm going to offer trust in an area that I have never really given it. I've got a brick wall somewhere that I've built around, my financial future, or the way that we handle our children, or the way that we do church, or conversations that we have and conversations that we won't have, and those kinds of things. And I'm going to start to take the bricks of that wall down a piece at a time in faith that I could start to experience a higher level of relationship like God is talking about. Now, what are you thinking? I know what you're thinking. Who's going to go first? Who's going to go first? Because the obvious is there. It's a little bit of a risk, isn't it? You could start to take down walls and offer trust or make deeper sacrifices for someone else and do things for them you've never done and all that stuff. But how do you know? How do you know that they're going to step up to their end on the other end? And the answer is this: you don't. You don't know that. But what I can tell you is that if you are ever going to experience that level of relationship, you're both going to have to go. And so it really doesn't matter who goes first because you both have to go. It doesn't matter who goes first. You both have to go. I mean, it's kind of like mom is up on top of the slide at Thompson Park, and she's got two kids up there, and they're both going to go down the slide. And they're arguing, who's going to go first? Oh, I want her to go first. No. It doesn't matter who's going to go first because we're all going down the slide. We've all got to get there. And if all of us don't get down there, we're not going to get down there. So the question, who's going to go first? I can tell you the answer is, you are. You are going to go first. If you have the conviction, you go first. That's the rule. If you believe our relationship should become deeper and greater and more magnificent like God intended, then you go first. That's on you. Because you can't make anybody do anything, but you sure can make yourself do something. You can sacrifice. You can trust. You can allow someone in deeper. That's on you. And I know, some of you may be in a place where you haven't really made the call. You haven't, you're like dating or something. It's not like you officially made this known. You didn't put an announcement in the paper, but you see somebody and you're just thinking to yourself, yeah, I don't think I could ever trust this one like that. My advice to you is put that fish back. Put that fish back. And that sounds mean. It really does. It just sounds, that's, callous. How could you, I'm telling you what, you're going to save them and you're going to save yourself from trapping two people in prison of a relationship that can never go beyond to where you wanted it to go and you don't know what to do afterward. You're going to save yourself all of that. And I know that some of you may be in a position where you're saying, I just could never trust anybody like that. It doesn't mean I'm looking at a specific person, just flat out anybody. And what I would advise to you is take the hook out of the water for a while, man. I mean, if you really feel that way, as a man or a woman, you really feel that way, you owe it to everybody in your path not to be interested in anybody until that changes. Because you're going to do a lot of damage eventually. Either you actually have peace about being single and that's fine, or you have some real, some stuff, some damage has been done. You got to get that worked through. Don't drag somebody else in with you in that time. Wait. But many more of you know your person. You know your person. And you are sitting on the seesaw. Which side will I take? Will I go all in? Or will I look for a way out? Will I go all in or look for a way out? Relationships are so much like a seesaw in that way. You really have to be all in or all out, or else you just get stuck. And nobody wants that. Nobody. I'm going to pray for you this morning that God would give us the faith to look God's truth in the eye and say, okay. Father, you have given us a guide. And we struggle with it. We hem and we haw and we pause and we procrastinate and we say, I don't know if that works here. I don't know if that works for me. That's too much or it's too little or something. How could you ask anyone to do that? And we just stop. And we just leave it there and go on about our business. But I pray today, Lord, that would not be one of those days. God, you would speak directly into our hearts by your Spirit, however you will, and say, son, daughter, this is the next step. This is the next step. Take it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'll see you next week with more fun stuff.